Well, that sucked. The Yankees lost 4-3 to the San Diego Padres on Monday night in, quite frankly, a game they had no business losing. This is a game they led 3-0 going in the eighth inning. Poor weather game, got a 28-minute delay during the game, a 28-minute delay to start the game. But the Yankees looked like they were at least going to ride a hot Carlos Rodon start, his fourth consecutive strong outing, to a victory. Thanks in large part to a 2-run home run from Trent Grisham, but everything came completely unraveled in the eighth inning. And I think that's what we need to sit here and talk about is, there was a decision that Aaron Boone made before the game that had everybody up in arms. And I was fully prepared to come on this podcast after a victory and have a conversation about it. And that was, that's going to take a back seat now. Because, and I'll just say what that was. It was a decision not to start Jason Dominguez on Monday, despite there being a right-handed starter on the mound, and despite Jason Dominguez being a monster against right-handed pitching, and it's really the lefties as he takes bats from the right-handed side that he really struggles against. But I think we have to discuss a different decision, a decision that was made between the seventh and eighth innings, and the decision that ultimately ended up costing the Yankees a game they really had no business losing, and a game that they were pretty dominant in for the most part. And that was the decision to go to Devin Williams for the eighth inning. Now, the Devin Williams train has been an experience throughout his very brief time with the Yankees so far. Got demoted from the closer role, was being used in high-ish to high-leverage situations, just not the ninth inning, and had looked pretty good in his last couple outings. This was not a good outing. And I think the question is going to be, because if you think about the context of the situation that Devin Williams was brought into on Monday night, in the top of the seventh inning, with 2 outs, Carlos Rodon was pulled, understandably so, in favor of Fernando Cruz. Rodon had been great, but he started to, slip a little bit in that inning. It was time to get him out, get that final out of the inning. You bring in Fernando Cruz, who has been dominant so far this year and leads the American League in strikeouts by a reliever. He throws 2 pitches, and the second pitch is in the dirt, and Luis Campusano tries to take home and is thrown out easily. I should say thrown out, I guess. I mean, the ball bounced away from Austin Wells, back to Austin Wells, who just kind of gets up and just finds the runner to make the tag. So I guess he's not even, I don't even know if you call it thrown out, just tagged out. End of the seventh inning, Yankees go into the eighth inning up 3-2. Well, end of the top of the seventh, they come up to bat, blah, 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 blah. So you have a 3-0 lead going into the top of the eighth inning. And instead of leaving Cruz in there, who has been so good so far this season, the decision was made. And by the way, not only was he been good so far this season, he only threw 2 pitches. Threw a grand total of 2 pitches. So there's no reason why he couldn't have stayed in that game for the eighth inning, or at least started the inning and see where things went. Instead, Aaron Boone decides that we're going to put Devin Williams in this spot. And Devin Williams had been put in the eighth inning, 2 or 3 run lead scenario before and did well. But for this felt like a forced decision in a way, either because he wanted to keep giving Devin Williams his confidence back, or it's a 3-run game. I want to go Devin Williams in the eighth, Weaver in the ninth, and that's just my decision, and I'm just going to go with it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm recording this right after the final out. We'll see what Aaron Boone says about his explanation and whether or not we even buy it coming out of this game. But what ends up happening is Williams comes in. He strikes out Martin Maldonado, which is not surprising. Maldonado is one of the weakest hitters in Major League Baseball and has been for some time. But then gets into trouble. Walks Tyler Wade. Brandon Lockwood singled to center field. Then he gets Fernando Tatis to strike out and one of the pitches in the at-bat was a questionable low call. Tatis gets thrown out, the manager gets thrown out. It just becomes this whole thing. And then Manny Machado ends up doubling to, deep left field. And it just becomes this whole thing. I mean, Luke Weaver ends up coming into the game. He gives up a couple hits as well. And in the end here, Devin Williams, all 3 runs that scored initially were charged to Devin Williams. Luke Weaver allows another one of his own. And it just collapsed. Everything just kind of collapsed in front of the Yankees bullpen. And, this was Weaver's obviously worst outing of the season. He is not without blame either. As much as he is liked and he is the preferred option at closer by pretty much the entire Yankees fan base, he is not without blame for giving up those runs and more himself either, because he still could have given up every single run that Devin Williams put on base, and the Yankees still wouldn't have necessarily lost that game. So Luke Weaver deserves some blame too, but Devin Williams' final line here: 1 hit, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 3 earned runs in a 4-run inning that wins the game for the Padres. The Yankees don't score in their final 2 at-bat opportunities. So it just a disappointing loss after Carlos Rodon had a magnificent start. 6 2/3, 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs. His ERA is now down to 2.96. His WHIP's down to 0.93, and he did more than enough to win this game. Just an incredibly tough loss. A loss again. I feel like we have watched this Devin Williams experiment and this roller coaster go up and down, but losing games. And it's not just losing games because of Devin Williams. Losing games that you're up by 3 or 4. I think that's been the really disappointing part. Because there are times you're going to be nursing a 1-run lead and you have a bad inning and you lose games. Devin Williams has cost them multiple games this year where they've had a 3 or 4-run lead. And that's inexcusable. That just can't happen. And to me, I think Aaron Boone needs to be questioned on what the decision was to take Cruz out of this game after 2 pitches in favor of Devin Williams there. That feels to me like a script. That feels to me like you've made the decision that you want Devin Williams to be your 8th inning guy, quote unquote. And then you're going to hand it. You wanted 3 outs from Williams in the 8th and then go 3 outs from Weaver in the 9th instead of going with the pitcher that's been on fire. And I'm not saying Devin Williams hasn't been good the last few starts, but he's also been shaky at times. And even the starts where even the appearances where he hasn't allowed runs, he has allowed base runners more often than not. So you take the guy out that's been virtually unhittable for most of the start of the season. After 2 pitches to put in Devin Williams, there was no matchup advantage. There was nothing there that necessitated it other than seemingly making the decision that you just wanted Devin Williams to pitch the 8th, and it cost him the game. And we've talked about this before, but the Yankees, not that any team can really afford losses, but the Yankees can't afford losses. They're not good enough. They're not a good enough team to start giving games away. This is a team that's going to need to fight and scratch and claw all season to be a playoff team or to win the division. And you've given away multiple games this year where you've had a 95 or 90+% win probability late in games. It's just inexcusable and it can't happen. And we started the day with people questioning Aaron Boone's lineup choices, and we're going to end the day questioning Aaron Boone's bullpen choices. And they're going to be right back at it again tomorrow. I don't know if the weather's going to be any better in New York, but right now they are still scheduled to start 7:05 p.m. start time with former Yankee Michael King on the mound against Clark Schmidt, who had his start pushed back from the weekend. But man, you've now lost 5 of 7, and I don't know, things don't feel great right now in the Bronx.